High Commission of Canada in India. Our High Commission and all consulates in India are open and operational and continue to serve clients. In light of the current environment where tensions have heightened, we are taking action to ensure the safety of our diplomats. With some diplomats having received threats on various social media platforms, Global Affairs Canada is assessing its staff complement in India. As a result, and out of an abundance of caution, we have decided to temporarily adjust staff presence in India. In the context of respect for obligations under the Vienna Conventions, we expect India to provide for the security of our accredited diplomats and consular officers in India, just as we are for theirs here. That is the latest statement put out by the High Commission of Canada in India amidst this diplomatic standoff. And my colleague, senior editor Shravan Sen, is back with us on the broadcast. Shravan, another statement now that has been put out, and they're talking about the safety of the diplomats here.
Well, in fact, if you see from India's position, the claims that have been made by Canada so far has already been dubbed as completely absurd. Now, as part of the Vienna Convention, remember, the security of the diplomats on the Indian soil is certainly important. And keeping that in mind, we have essentially seen after the diplomat, the Canadian diplomat who was expelled by India, thereafter, the security was also increased outside the Canadian High Commission here in the national capital. Having said that, remember, this is just the tip of the iceberg. Given the fact that there is mounting pressure on Canada right now with regards to furnish evidence that they have been claiming that they are in their possession with regards to the killing of Hardeep Nijjar, who was wanted by the Indian security agencies, a man who entered Canada on a fake passport for almost a decade. Remember, he wasn't recognized even by the Canadian authorities, but now you have the head of the state essentially backing a Khalistani terrorist. Now, as a result of which, remember, there has been the diplomatic ties between India and Canada have been strained. India has called these claims that have been made by Canada as completely absurd because so far they haven't been able to furnish any proof. In fact, as we understand from our sources, as a member of the Five Eye Alliance, it is incumbent on Canada to perhaps furnish further proof. Now, with regards to India, remember, on multiple occasions, this is not the first time, Rakshita, multiple occasions, they have actually provided dossier evidence to suggest that several of the Khalistani terrorists who are wanted here in India are actually residing in Canada. In fact, if you take a list that we've also accessed, which gives the full details of the number of terrorists who are currently being shielded in Canada, which basically includes starting from Goldie Bra, who is in Canada. It's suspected to be in Canada. You have Lakhbir Singh Landa, who is also wanted here in India, resident of Taran, who is currently in Canada. You have Sukhdev Singh, who was the report that came in of being killed in a gang war that took place in Canada. He too was in Canada. Apart from the Arshdeep Singh, Arsh Dalla, who is also wanted by the National Investigation Agency, is suspected to be in Canada. You have at least 5 more Khalistani terrorists who are currently residing in Canada. Now, this dossier, from where I'm quoting right now, this dossier was handed over to Canada not just by the National Investigation Agency, but also former Chief Minister of Punjab, Amrinder Singh, had Trudeau during his visit to Canada, where they were seeking cooperation from Canada with regards to the attacks that have taken place in several of the consular services of India in Canada. Importantly, over the last couple of months, we have seen the National Investigation Agency stepping up their investigation teams, as I understand, have already visited with regards to investigation that they're carrying out of the attack that took place in Vancouver, as well as the San Francisco attack that took place, which is being probed by the National Investigation Agency. A third team is expected to actually leave for Canada, but remember, those approvals haven't come. But all this while, what we are picking up from the Indian security establishment is the fact that there has been scant regard by the Canadian administration to help the Indian investigative agencies to locate these very people who have been openly staying in Canada, have also got the backing of the Canadian intelligence agencies. Important to point out, Nijjar being one such case His own family members have admitted to the fact that just before his killing, he was in touch with the Canadian Intelligence Service, and the fact that logistical support was being given to Niger by the Canadian Intelligence Agency. So the question here is that the head of the state, that's Justin Trudeau, wasn't he really aware of the fact that it was his own intelligence service who was providing the logistical support to Niger? Secondly, with regards to Niger, remember there have been multiple cases that have been registered against him. India has officially communicated this to Canada, but despite that, remember, a man against whom there is a red corner notice wasn't arrested. Remember, Canada being a member of Interpol, it is incumbent on them to basically follow the procedure, which would essentially mean that they should have arrested Niger the moment a red corner notice was issued against him. But despite that, we haven't seen any sort of concrete action really being taken by the Canadian authorities.
Of course, as you mentioned, the time and again India has provided proof in dossiers after dossiers. Even in 2018, when Canadian Prime Minister was in India and he went to meet Captain Amrinder Singh in Amritsar. At that time also, there was a list of Khalistani extremists that was presented to him, and it included Niger's name as well, and yet we see there was no action that has been taken. And now Canada turns around and points fingers on India. Doesn't it seem that it is the pressure that is only growing on Justin Trudeau to stay in par with his alliance partners? It's only that he's almost being held hostage.
Well, there is absolutely no doubt about the fact that there are domestic compulsions. If you really look at his ratings that have essentially come out, it shows that it has tanked. And with elections around the corner, it is perhaps what he is doing right now. Justin Trudeau is essentially trying to address to that very community, hoping that his chances of survival would be intact, because remember, his policies are now being completely hamstrung only because of the kind of support that he essentially needs from these very forces. In fact, if you really see, after the statement that was made by Justin Trudeau on the floor of the Parliament in Canada, you've had the opposition parties in Canada demanding that Justin Trudeau actually comes out in open and talks about the evidence that he indicated that he has against India, and the fact that he's gone a step ahead by saying that Indian agents were responsible for the killing of Khalistani terrorist Niger. But so far, remember, there has been not a single word has come in from the Canadian authorities or even from the High Commission here that they have the proof and they're willing to share it with India, hoping that there would be some sort of a cooperation from the Indian side. If you go by the claim that has been made by the Indian security agencies, they made it abundantly clear that so far it appears that Niger's killing was a result of a gang war that took place. Remember, he was killed just outside the Gurdwara that he was taking care of. In fact, there is also another angle that is essentially emerging, that there is this want to control the funds of the Gurdwara, and that could be one of the motive behind the killing of Niger. But so far, Canada has not even arrested a single person on a case where they say that India is essentially allegedly involved. They've not been able to provide a single evidence. And have only informed countries like Australia, UK and India, and I beg your pardon, and the United States of America with regards to such an incident taking place and making this allegation months after the killing of Hardeep Niger, who has been wanted by the Indian security agency. So unless Canada basically walks the talk, it is very unlikely that you would have India taking a step back. In fact, security agencies and in fact even the diplomatic sources now indicating that there is enough gunpowder against Canada at this point in time, them being completely inactive, not really acting on the dossier that has been provided by India to take action against Khalistani elements operating out of Canada.
Right, of course, and of course now the latest we have is that the face-off has only been escalated by Canada with now the Indian visa services, remember, in Canada have been now suspended. That is the latest we have, and Canada at the same time, the Indian of course High Commission, the High Commission of Canada rather in India, raising concerns over security and talking about adjusting the staff presence in India temporarily. That is the latest we have, viewers, but time now to move on to other stories. Thank you so much, Chavan, for joining us with all those details. We come to you as there will be more updates in this diplomatic standoff between India and Canada. Statement by Canada High Commission. has been released. We'll get you more on that in a short while.